You're standing in your bathroom right now, aren't you? Bottle in hand, scrubbing the same tile you scrubbed last week, and it already looks dull again. Here's the thing I wish someone had told me years ago. The reason your home never stays clean isn't you, it's the method. You were taught to clean the hard way, the expensive way, the way that guarantees you'll be right back on your knees next Saturday. I spent more than a decade doing exactly that. More sprays, more gadgets, more weekends lost. Then I started copying how Japanese homes stay spotless with almost no effort, and the work didn't just shrink, it nearly disappeared. Stick with me, because the last trick comes from a centuries-old Japanese habit that quietly makes the single biggest mistake in your whole house look absurd. And every one of these works in a tiny apartment, a rental, a shared space where you can't change a thing. Let me start with the one that made me feel like I'd been robbed. You wipe your counters at the end of the day, right? After the mess is done, after dinner, after the crumbs have sat there for hours. That's what I did too. I thought cleaning meant reacting to mess. But in Japan, there's a concept woven into daily life that flips the whole idea on its head. It's the habit of cleaning the moment before mess can settle, not the hours after. The Japanese treat a wipe as something you do while you go, not a chore you save up. A damp cloth lives within arm's reach of where the mess happens, and the surface gets a 3-second pass constantly, all day, in tiny moments. Here's why the old way was quietly costing me. When I let grease and crumbs sit for hours, they bonded to the surface. So when I finally cleaned, I needed a degreaser, real scrubbing, real time. The mess had cured onto the counter like paint. I was paying for chemical strength to undo a delay I created myself. Now I keep one folded microfiber cloth, slightly damp, sitting on the counter, not under the sink, not in a drawer, right there, visible. The second I spill or drop or splatter, it's gone in one motion before it can dry. Total cleaning time at night went from 20 minutes to almost nothing because there's nothing left to fight. And the wild part is that I use no product at all now for daily counters, just water and timing. The spray I bought was never solving the problem, it was solving the delay. But if you think that's a small change, wait until you see what you've been doing to your sponge, because that one is worse. You keep one sponge by the sink, you use it for everything, and you replace it when it starts to smell. I did this for years, and I genuinely thought a smelly sponge was just a fact of life. That sponge is the dirtiest object in your entire home. Dirtier than the toilet handle. It's a warm, wet, food-covered breeding ground, and every time you clean a plate with it, you're spreading bacteria across everything you own. The Japanese approach here isn't a better sponge. It's a different tool entirely, and a habit of keeping cleaning cloths bone dry. In many Japanese kitchens, you'll find a thin, fast-drying cloth called a fukin, and the whole point is that it dries completely between uses, so nothing can grow in it. Dryness is the disinfectant, not the chemical, the dryness. So here's what I changed. My dishcloth gets wrung out hard and hung fully open, spread flat over a bar so air hits every fiber. It's dry within the hour. A sponge can't do that. A sponge stays wet in its center for days, which is exactly why it stinks. I switched to thin, flat cloths. I can boil, wring, and dry completely, and the sour smell in my kitchen vanished. Not masked. Gone. Therefore, the real trick was never buying a fancier tool. It was choosing a tool that dries and giving it the air to do it. Almost free, instantly better. And speaking of things we make wet that should stay dry, let me tell you what I learned about the bathroom, because this is where most of us waste the most effort of all. You scrub your shower because it's covered in soap scum and water spots and pink mildew in the corners. You buy the strongest cleaner you can find. You scrub until your arm aches. That was my entire relationship with my bathroom for years. But in Japan, the shower doesn't get scrubbed like that because the mold and scum never get a chance to form. The habit is simple, and it's built into the routine. After the last person showers, someone takes 30 seconds to wipe the walls and squeegee the water off, and often to splash the walls with cool water first. Mold needs moisture to grow. Take away the standing water, and you take away the mold's entire food supply. Here's the number that stopped me cold. Soap, scum, and mildew need surfaces to stay wet for hours to really take hold. A wet wall dries slowly on its own, staying damp long enough for growth every single day. A squeegeed wall is dry in minutes. So the person wiping for 30 seconds a day is doing less total work in a month than I was doing in a single Saturday scrub session. I keep a small squeegee hanging inside the shower now, stuck to the tile. After I rinse off, I run it down the glass and the walls, top to bottom. 10 seconds. The water spots that used to etch permanently into my glass door never form anymore because the water is gone before it can dry into mineral crust. The scrubbing wasn't cleaning. It was catching up on a mess I let happen. Once I stopped the mess from happening, the scrubbing stopped too. Therefore, my strongest bathroom cleaner has been sitting untouched for months. And that leads me straight into the biggest lie I ever believed about cleaning, the one about products themselves. Because now that you're 3 tricks in, you're ready to hear who taught us to do all this the hard way in the first place. Look under your sink right now. I'll wait. How many different bottles are down there? A glass cleaner, a tile cleaner, a wood cleaner, a stainless cleaner, a bathroom cleaner, a kitchen cleaner. I once counted 14 bottles under one sink, and I'm embarrassed to say they were mine. Here's what nobody selling those bottles wants you to realize. Most of them are the same handful of ingredients with different colors, different scents, and a different label telling you which room to use them in. You were sold the idea that every surface needs its own specialized product. That idea didn't come from science. It came from companies who figured out they could sell you 6 bottles instead of 1. The Japanese kitchen and bathroom I studied ran on a tiny number of simple things, not a wall of specialty sprays. A shelf with a few basics that each do many jobs. The mindset is that a cleaner is a cleaner, and the surface mostly needs the right cloth and the right timing, not a magic chemical match to a specific counter. So I did something that felt reckless. I threw out or gave away almost every specialty bottle. I kept a gentle all-purpose solution, a mild acid for mineral buildup, and my dry cloths. That's it. And my home got cleaner. Not the same, cleaner. Because I stopped standing there deciding which of 14 bottles to grab and just cleaned. The money I'd spent was gone, but the relief was enormous. And if you want to go even deeper into all of this, the full system, the reasoning behind every habit, and exactly how to put it together in your own home, I've written it all out. It's called Clean Slate, and it's also available as deep order in the Clean System, depending on which approach fits where you are right now. You'll find the details in the description. Everything in those pages builds on exactly what we're talking about here, laid out so you can follow it step by step without having to piece it together yourself. But the bottles were only the beginning of what I was tricked into buying, because the next one is a machine you probably run several times a week. The Japanese homes barely rely on the same way. You dry your laundry in a machine, load in, heat on, tumble for an hour, and hope nothing shrinks. It feels like the modern, correct way. I never questioned it once. But a huge number of Japanese households air dry almost everything all year, even in small apartments. And it isn't about being old-fashioned. It's about the clothes lasting longer, the air staying humid in dry seasons, and the electricity bill staying low. That lint you empty from the dryer trap, that's your clothing, breaking down thread by thread from heat and tumbling. The dryer isn't just drying your clothes, it's slowly destroying them. The Japanese habit uses vertical space brilliantly. Slim indoor drying racks, rods mounted high near the ceiling where warm air rises, and clever hangers that hold many items in the footprint of one. Clothes come out shaped better, smelling of nothing but clean air, lasting years longer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Air drying takes forever and makes everything stiff. It did for me too, until I learned the trick is airflow, not sunshine. I set a small fan to move air across the rack, and things dry faster than I expected, soft instead of crunchy, because moving air pulls moisture out evenly. Therefore, I run my dryer maybe once a week now instead of daily. My clothes look newer for longer. And here's the part that surprised me most, which I'll come back to, because how the Japanese hang and fold things is hiding an even bigger secret about your closet. You fold your shirts flat and stack them in a drawer, one on top of the other, in a neat pile. That's how everyone folds. That's how I folded my whole life. But here's what that pile does to you. You can only see the top shirt. To find the one at the bottom, you dig, and the whole stack collapses. So you refold, and the drawer becomes a mess within a day. You wear the same 3 shirts on top forever, while the ones underneath are forgotten. The flat stack fails you every single time you open the drawer. The Japanese method, made famous by a professional organizer whose approach swept the world, folds each item into a small standing rectangle and files it upright, like books on a shelf, so every single piece is visible at a glance. You open the drawer and you see everything you own at once. Nothing is buried, nothing collapses, because each folded piece supports the one beside it. The reasoning is beautiful. When you can see everything, you use everything, and you stop buying duplicates of things you forgot you owned. The drawer also holds more this way, because filing upright uses the full depth of the drawer instead of a short, flimsy stack. I refolded one drawer this way as a test. One. It's been standing perfectly for months, and I've worn shirts I'd genuinely forgotten I had. So I did every drawer. Getting dressed stopped being a dig and became a glance. But folding is only half of the clutter problem, because the way you decide what to keep is where the real transformation lives. And that's the mistake that keeps your home cluttered no matter how much you organize. You declutter by asking what you can get rid of. You look at a shelf and think, do I really need this? Can I throw this out? I did this for years and it never worked, because it's exhausting to argue yourself out of keeping every single thing. The famous Japanese method flips the question entirely. Instead of asking what to discard, you ask what to keep. You hold each item and ask whether it brings you joy, whether it earns its place in your life. It sounds soft, but it's ruthless in the best way, because keeping becomes the thing you have to justify, not discarding. Here's why the old way kept failing me. When the default is keep and you have to justify tossing, everything stays, because doubt always favors keeping. When the default flips and each item has to earn its spot, the clutter falls away naturally, because most of it never earned anything. It was just there. And there's an order to it that matters. You go by category, not by room. All your clothes from every closet in one pile. Then all your books. Then papers. Then the small miscellaneous things. Then sentimental items last. Once you've practiced deciding. Doing it by category shows you the shocking truth of how much you actually own, which a room-by-room approach hides. The first time I gathered every piece of clothing I owned into one mountain on my bed, I was horrified and freed at the same time. I kept less than half, and I have never once missed what left. Therefore, decluttering stopped being a war I fought and lost every spring. It became a decision I made once. But keeping less is only powerful if the things you keep have a home. And that brings me to the habit that quietly ends clutter forever. You have a junk drawer, maybe several, a spot where things land because they don't have a place. The mail, the keys, the little things, everyone has one, and I treated mine like it was inevitable. But in an organized Japanese home, the rule is that every single object has one fixed home, and it always returns to that exact home the moment you're done with it. There's a saying that captures it, the idea of a place for everything and returning it right away. Clutter, in this view, isn't too much stuff. It's stuff that's homeless, drifting, piling up because it has nowhere to land. Here's the cost of the junk drawer I never saw. Every homeless item creates a decision every time you touch it. Where does this go? And because there's no answer, you set it down for now, and for now becomes forever, and the surfaces fill. A home without fixed places forces you to redecide the same clutter 100 times a week. So I gave everything a home. The scissors live in one spot, always. The keys hang on one hook, always. The chargers, the tape, the mail, each has one fixed place. And the rule is that using something includes returning it. The way closing a door is part of opening it. The magic is that tidying basically stopped. You can't have a messy house when everything already has a home, because putting things away isn't a separate chore anymore. It happens in the same motion as using them. Now, I can hear some of you already. This is fine for people with big houses and lots of storage, but you're in a small apartment or a rental where you can't drill, can't build, can't change a thing. This next part is exactly for you, because the Japanese have perfected small space living more than anyone on earth, and none of it requires permission from a landlord. You store things on the floor and on flat surfaces, boxes on the closet floor, stacks on the dresser, things leaning in corners. It feels like using your space, but flat storage is a trap in a small home because the floor fills first and then you're stuck. The Japanese answer is to go vertical and to use the backs of doors, the insides of cabinet doors, the walls, the air. Tension rods change everything, and they need zero drilling. A tension rod is a spring-loaded pole that wedges between two walls or the sides of a cabinet with pressure alone, holds real weight, and comes out leaving no mark. In Japan, these are used everywhere, under sinks, in closets, across windows, inside cabinets, to create shelves and hanging space out of thin air. Here's what I did in my rental with nothing but tension rods and a few hooks that peel off clean. I put a tension rod under my bathroom sink and hung all my spray bottles from it by their triggers, freeing the entire cabinet floor. I put another across the inside of a cabinet to hold cutting boards and pot lids upright. I added a low one inside a closet to double my hanging space. Short items above and below. The over-the-door approach is the other half of this. A rack that simply hooks over the top of any door, turns dead space into a pantry, a shoe store, a cleaning closet. No screws, no holes. It comes with you when you move. And the deepest small space idea from Japan isn't a product at all. It's the belief that empty space is valuable, that the floor being visible is worth more than another thing stored on it. A small home feels calm, not when it's full of clever storage, but when there's breathing room around what you keep. That mindset shift is free, and it's the one that made my little apartment finally feel like it could exhale. So please stop believing these tricks need a big house. The small space versions are often the better ones because constraint forces the smartest solution. And now that you can do all of this anywhere, let me push into the corrections that go deeper, because the next few overturn habits you've never even thought to question. You clean your floors with a mop and a bucket of water, push the dirty water around, wring it out, push it around again. It feels thorough. It's how I clean my floors for as long as I can remember. But think about what a mop and bucket actually do. You dip the mop in the water, clean a bit of floor, then dip the now dirty mop back into the same water, making it filthy, then spread that filthy water across the rest of your floor. A mop and bucket cleans the first square foot and smears the rest. You're rinsing your mop in the dirt you already collected. Japanese homes lean on a very different tradition, cleaning floors with a flat cloth and fresh water, often on hands and knees or with a flat wiper that holds a disposable or washable sheet. Each pass uses a clean surface, so dirt gets lifted and carried away, not redistributed. The flat cloth on the floor, called zoken cleaning, is a deep part of Japanese school culture, where children clean their own classrooms daily, learning that you wipe with a clean cloth and rinse it out fully or swap it. The dry sweep first rule matters too. You never wet a floor that still has loose dirt on it, because water turns dust into mud that smears into every seam. Dry first, capturing the loose particles, then damp wipe the residue with a clean surface. I switched to a flat mop with a washable pad and a habit of rinsing or swapping the pad the moment it looks dirty, not at the end. My floors are actually clean now, not just wet. And the streaky film that used to dry onto them, that was the dirty mop water all along. Therefore, the bucket that felt like real cleaning was quietly the reason my floors never looked fresh. But floors are visible. The next mistake is invisible, and it's floating in the air of your home right now. You keep your windows closed and run the air conditioning or heating to keep the house comfortable, sealed up, climate controlled, efficient. That's modern living. And I never questioned that a closed house was a clean house. But a sealed home traps everything inside it. The moisture from cooking and showering, the dust, the stale air, the smells, all of it circulates and settles because it has nowhere to go. A closed house doesn't stay clean, it marinates. And that trapped humidity is exactly what feeds mold in corners. And that musty smell that no spray ever fully fixes. In Japan, there's a daily habit of opening the windows to let air move through, even briefly, even in cold months. It's tied to a broader respect for fresh air and moisture control in a humid climate. Opening windows on opposite sides of a space for even a few minutes creates a cross breeze that flushes out stale, damp air and replaces it with dry, fresh air, carrying moisture and odors out with it. Here's the reasoning that convinced me. Damp indoor air is what lets mold grow. what makes closets smell, what keeps that heavy feeling in a room. Moving air is naturally drying and self-cleaning. A few minutes of cross-ventilation does more for the freshness of your home than any plug-in scent, which only covers the smell of trapped, damp air instead of removing it. I open 2 windows across from each other for about 5 minutes every morning, even in winter. The house smells like nothing in the best way, and that faint mustiness in my hall closet disappeared. The air itself was part of the mess, and I'd never thought to clean it. But airflow leads me to the thing many of us do at the front door, which the Japanese consider almost unthinkable. And once you understand why, you can't unsee it. You walk through your whole house in the shoes you wore outside, across the kitchen, into the bedroom, onto the rug. It's normal here. I did it without a second thought for most of my life. Think about where those shoes have been. Public bathrooms, sidewalks, parking lots. Every invisible thing on the ground outside. And then that all comes into your home and gets ground into your floors and carpets, the very floors you spend your weekends cleaning. Wearing outdoor shoes inside means you are the one tracking in the dirt you then work to remove. In Japan, taking your shoes off at the entrance is absolute, and it's built into the architecture with a lowered entry area called the Genkan, a small sunken space by the door where outdoor shoes come off before you step up into the living space. The physical step up marks a clear line between the dirty outside and the clean inside. It isn't just custom. It's the single most effective dirt control system a home can have, and it costs nothing. Studies of household dust consistently find that a huge portion of what's on our floors was carried in on shoes, along with the outdoor grime and chemicals we'd rather not think about. Remove the shoes, and you remove most of the dirt before it ever enters. I set up a simple shoe-off zone by my door with a small mat and a spot to sit, and I asked everyone to use it. My floors stay clean for days now instead of hours. I vacuum a fraction of what I used to. The dirt I'd been fighting wasn't being generated inside my home. I was walking it in myself every single day. Therefore, the hardest working cleaning habit in my house now happens before I've even fully walked through the door. But all of this, every trick so far has been about doing. The final one is about something deeper, and it's the oldest, quietest, most powerful idea of them all. Here's what I believe for most of my life. Cleaning is a chore, a burden, something to rush through, resent, and get over with so I could relax. I raced through it, hated it, and put it off, which only made it bigger and worse each time. But the trick that changed everything for me comes from a centuries-old Japanese practice rooted in Zen Buddhist temples, where monks clean not because a space is dirty, but as a daily discipline, a form of care and meditation. The practice is called osoji in its grand form, the deep year-end cleaning. But the deeper idea underneath it is that cleaning is not about the dirt at all. It's about respect for the space that holds your life and for your own mind while you do it. In these temples, monks wipe the same already clean floors every morning, slowly, with full attention, treating the act itself as the point. The space isn't dirty. The cleaning is a way of caring for it and of settling the mind. And here's the revelation that hit me like cold water. When cleaning is something you do a little of every day as care, it never becomes the exhausting mountain. It becomes when you save it up as a chore. This is the biggest myth of all, and it's the one that was quietly ruining my relationship with my home. I thought a clean house came from occasional heroic effort. The frantic deep clean before guests, the exhausting Saturday. But a truly effortless home comes from tiny, calm, daily acts of care that never let mess accumulate in the first place. The monks aren't working harder than me. They're working softer and constantly, and so nothing ever piles into a crisis. Someone preserved this idea for hundreds of years through generations in temples where the whole point was to strip life down to what matters, and now it's yours. You don't have to be a monk. You just have to shift one belief, that cleaning is a small daily act of care instead of a giant occasional punishment. So here's what I actually do now, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. I wipe one surface with full attention while my coffee brews. I straighten one shelf as I pass it. I clean not in a frenzy, but in small, unhurried moments, and I let those moments be a little bit calming instead of resented. The house stays clean, and strangely, my mind feels clearer too, because the act stopped being something I was fleeing. That's the whole secret the temples were protecting. Not a product, not a gadget, a relationship with your home that turns cleaning from a war into a habit so small you barely notice it, while your house stays effortlessly spotless. Here's what I want you to take from all of this. You were never lazy, and you were never bad at keeping a home. You were just handed the hard, expensive, exhausting version and told it was the only way. It wasn't. It never was. You're the kind of person who's willing to question the way you were taught, to trade more effort for less and more calm for chaos. And that's exactly the mind that turns a stressful home into a peaceful one. That instinct that told you something was off, that you were working too hard for too little, was right all along. So tell me one thing in the comments. Which of these did you honestly do the hard way for years like I did? Was it the 14 bottles under the sink, the dryer running every day, the mop and bucket, or the shoes across the whole house? Pick the one that made you wince and tell me, because I read them and I promise you're not alone. And I really want to know which flip surprised you the most. If you're ready to stop cleaning the hard way and start keeping a calmer, simpler home with almost no effort, come along with the rest of us who are unlearning all of it together. Next time, I'm going to show you the one thing in your kitchen you empty and refill every day that Japanese homes handle in a way that eliminates the smell at its source. And once you see it, you'll wonder how you ever lived with it. I'll see you there. You're still here with me, so let me tell you what comes next. This video gave you the overview, but inside the Tidy Home Circle, I pick up right where I stopped, walking you room by room. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person answers you, not a machine. You're not alone. Thousands like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime.